Be the Light Show. I'm Denise Rezsonya, your show host, and we are filming here live at the Wofford Theater in Noblesville. I'd like to say thank you to our show sponsor today, Jim Wofford, the Wofford Theater and Hamilton County Television. And I'd like to introduce you to our first guests today. I've got with me Dawn Finbloom from Make Good Decisions and Michele Whelchel of, say the name of your organization.
Indiana Youth Services Association.
Indiana Youth Services Association. And today is what I call one of our hard hitter episodes. We're going to be discussing the subject of alcohol poisoning specifically. So Dawn's son, Brett Finbloom, passed away from alcohol poisoning. And our hope is that we can provide you with some information that will help young people make educated decisions and hopefully encourage them to be sure to get help in situations like this. So if we can start off by maybe having some information on Brett. Tell us about your son.
Okay, well, actually our nightmare kind of began in the wee hours of August 3rd. He was 18 years old, and he was getting ready to go to college. The kids were going around making their rounds, seemed like saying goodbyes to friends. It was Norm and I's 26th wedding anniversary, so we were going out to a nice restaurant. Brett agreed to take his sister on the soccer carpool, pick them up and everything so we could go out. We came home, it was about 9:15 at night on August 2nd, our anniversary. And Brett and his sister are at the Center Island, and Brett, of course, was all excited we were back because that meant that now he could go out. and he asked if he could go out to see a couple of his friends over to one of them's house, and of course we said yes, that he could go, and never knowing that that would be the last time that we would see him again. And then we got the call that is what every parent doesn't want to have. What I say is worse than our worst nightmare. And about 1:45 in the morning when we got the call from a police officer, and he said that our son had been drinking. So my first thoughts are, it's like, Brett's going to be in trouble, that this is going to mess up his college. And then I got the worst news, and that was, your son's heart has stopped. Paramedics are working on him. He's in transit to the hospital, and get to the heart hospital as fast as you can. So we threw on our clothes to change into some sweats or something that would work out at the hospital. I didn't dress warm enough because, being the eternal optimist that I am, I thought that it was going to be okay, that we would probably be there a short time and Brett would be revived and we'd be coming home. We wrote our daughter a note, who was sleeping, and just said, I don't remember exactly what we said in the note, but we left and went to the hospital, and then we realized that this was really bad and walked into those emergency room doors. Our son was laying right to the right in one of the rooms, and he looked okay. He wasn't talking or anything, and he was all hooked up to things, but that looked optimistic, and they told me that they had gotten Brett's heart started again. So I thought, okay, he's going to be okay. But I hadn't thought about the damage to Brett's brain yet, and that he had been deprived of oxygen for maybe too long. And then there were tests of his brain activity, and 2 tests actually that were 24 hours or so apart, and it was ultimately determined that Brett didn't have brain activity. There were tons of people that ended up coming to the hospital, really basically holding a vigil so that they could have hope for Brett, and they did. But then ultimately it was found that Brett was not going to be okay, and our son became an organ donor then.
Oh, okay. That's obviously, we've been talking several times over the last few months, and I'm so incredibly sorry for your loss. As a parent myself, I do truly understand how difficult it would be to receive a phone call like that. And I also really want to commend you for the fact that you're out doing what you're doing and helping to educate young people, because this is just so important, as well as us as parents, about all of these dangers and about the lifeline law that we will subsequently talk about here in a little while. I do also want to make it a point to mention to viewers that this is not someone clear across the country. This is someone who lived right here in our backyard in Carmel. This stuff happens everywhere. Don't think it's not going to happen to me or it was an isolated incident, because that's just not the case. I mean, the statistics we have here are staggering.
Yes, they are.
And please, if you'd like to share some of those, please do.
Well, I wish I had known beforehand, and it was just reported a few months ago from the CDC that every day in our country, 6 people die from alcohol poisoning, just like Brett did, which is simply drinking too much, too fast. So in the matter of a few minutes, you can, even less than that, you can drink enough where your life will end.
So now, on the night that Brett died, what exactly happened? There was some confusion there. Friends didn't know if they should stay or go. They thought he was okay.
Right, I think everybody wants to do the right thing, so this isn't a matter of blame or anything. It's a matter of education and awareness, because I 100% believe that if his friends had understood the alcohol poisoning signs that Dr. Inglis will talk to us about today, that they would have called right away. But they didn't know how serious it was, because they've seen people passed out before. When we go to high schools, we ask students, how many of you have seen someone passed out before? And almost everybody raises their hand. So they just think they're going to be lucky and it's going to be okay.
Okay. And we do want to make it a point, as you mentioned here in your paperwork, that none of us are supporting underage drinking. That's certainly not the case here. This is just to make people aware of what can happen and how to be prepared in a situation should it happen. Dawn, would you maybe Michele, would you maybe give us some information on what Make Good Decisions is and how that's tied in with the Indiana Youth Services Association?
Well, July 1st of 2012, the Indiana Lifeline Law became law. And then August 5th, 2012, Brett Finbloom died. And so a few days after that, Senator Jim Merritt came to, at that time, Promising Futures here in Hamilton County, asking our help to get the word out about the Indiana Lifeline Law. And so, of course, we agreed. And not long after that, I think Cathedral asked Norman Don to come speak, and they spoke there. And so a few weeks after that, we all came together and decided at that time that we would teach the state about the Indiana Lifeline Law, and Norman Don had been a big part of that, of course. Since then, we've moved to Indiana Youth Services Association, which is a statewide organization. We are a membership agency, so we have 30 youth service bureaus across the state. We cover 84 counties and collectively serve 100,000 kids a year. And so every county that there's a YSB, and the counties that they're covering, they're helping educate those counties with the Indiana Lifeline Law. So Make Good Decisions has kind of really evolved through these years. And our mission is to educate young adults, teens, and adults and families about the dangers of binge drinking, drugs, and then Indiana Lifeline Law. And Norm and Don, and we also have another partner, Marty Cagney, they do an excellent job of teaching about the Indiana Lifeline Law, the dangers and what to look for, and really what does it mean to make the call, when do I make the call, what do I do when I stay, what do I do when I cooperate. And the other big thing that Norm and Don are really good at, and we want, is every teen to have the pre-commitment to make the call. So you've got to decide now while you're sober to make the call. Then when you're in that situation, you will make the call because it's the right thing to do. And taking that fear away of being prosecuted and losing scholarships.
And one of the tools that you have is this Make Good Decisions pledge, and is that up on your website then?
Yes.
Okay. And could you go ahead and give our viewers that website information?
Yeah, sure. We have two websites. It's www.indysb.org, and then we have www.makegoodDecisions.info.
And so, yeah, this pledge is up here that you can take a look at as parents and talk about it with your kids. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we will have Dr. Gavin Inglis on the show. Thank you so much.
You know, when Margaret and I decided to sell the old estate here, we had only one choice in signage. Logan Street signs and banners. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore, but rather located on 10th Street on the south side of Noblesville. Well, we sold the old beauty, and we were able to buy this wonderful estate. And we had so much money left over, I was able to buy this beautiful 1968 Eldorado Cadillac for Margaret. Only 472,000 miles. Margaret loves it because it's got those big seats and that heavy-duty suspension to support her svelte frame. Next time you're looking for signs or banners, call old Jim at Logan Street Signs and Banners, 773-7200. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore.
Everyone knows it's easy to find first-run movies in the big theaters. But where can you go to watch your favorite classic movies on the big screen for the perfect night out? Why rent a flick when you can rent the entire theater? Call today to reserve our 32-seat theater for your next event, or just stop by to see what's showing this weekend. The 14 by 7 foot screen and the high quality digital surround sound system offers all the amenities you would expect from the big theaters, with a laid back atmosphere and comfortable seating of your own home. Wofford Theater at 1744 South 10th Street in Noblesville gives you the classic movies you want with a big theater experience.
Kind of see-through.
It's like he's using that solo cup.
Welcome back to the Be the Light Show. I am Denise Rezsonya, your show host, and I would like to welcome Dr. Gavin Inglis to the show.
Hello.
Hello. Dr. Inglis is an emergency room physician, and he's going to help educate us on exactly what alcohol poisoning is, some of the effects, maybe what we should look for and be knowledgeable about.
So there are a few things for me that are a problem as far as alcohol goes. First of all, I'm not anti-alcohol. Alcohol is not evil. I'm not saying any of that. But part of the misconception that I run into is a few things. One is people don't understand it to be a drug, which is what it is. And secondly, most people don't understand how it works. So the first part about it being a drug, it's really no accident. I mean, billions of dollars a year are spent to make sure that we don't think of alcohol as a drug, but rather Diet Coke you can't drink until you're 21. Because it's the only recreational drug that has an advertising campaign. No other recreational drug can advertise. And it's the only advertising campaign that doesn't advertise what the product does. If you watch beer commercials, they don't tell you what alcohol does. They tell you about a feeling. They want to make you happy or nostalgic or make you laugh. And because they want to have a positive association with their product. It doesn't tell you anything about what it does, which, watch the commercials for yourself. It'll pretty much answer that.
Yeah.
So it's no accident we don't think of it as a drug. And so the downside is it kind of makes it less of a scary element. It's not, heroin has a stigma, but alcohol is just Diet Coke you can't drink until you're 21. So it kind of makes it a little less scary. The second part is most people don't understand how it works. And for the biochemists and the physicians in the audience, this is pretty rudimentary because I want to get away from numbers and science and all of that and just kind of make it simple. If you think about the brain from the outside in, the essential life functions are in the center of the brain. That's the part that controls breathing and vomiting and the heartbeat and blood pressure. You don't have any thought process. There's nothing that controls that. It happens on its own. The outside of the brain is more of judgment, reasoning, thought, the idea that I want to move my hand to grab the cup, those sorts of things. And alcohol, if you want to think really simply, works from the outside of the brain in. So the first thing that gets affected is higher cortical function, thought, reasoning, fine motor. And the problem with it is you can't tell. Because as I always tell when I do these lectures in the high schools, the problem is if you ever ask anyone who's had any alcohol to drink if they're okay, they will always say yes. Because the first thing that goes is your judgment, your higher cortical function, your reasoning.
Right.
And so you're using your impaired judgment to judge your impairment, which is, I always say that several times to the kids because I like that. You're using your impaired judgment to judge your impairment. So in your brain, everything's perfect. Everything's working really well. I'm very clever, very funny. I'm the most charming person that there is in this party. And so in their head, everything's okay. The problem is, it's not. I mean, if you've ever seen anybody who's drinking or been around, you can see they are goofy, they lose their inhibitions, they start saying things that they maybe normally wouldn't, they start to slur their speech. And as you move along with the more alcohol that you drink, you start getting deeper and deeper into the brain function until you get down into the coordination, which is where you see people, the sloppy drunk, where they're staggering around because they could still move their arms and legs, but they're not moving them in a coordinated fashion. So they're falling over and they're not able to balance very well. And then you start to get into the vomiting and the drowsiness, and that's where you start to get into danger. And it's interesting because, again, because alcohol is not thought of as a drug, we think of it more as Diet Coke. When people pass out, you'll actually hear someone say, oh, they've passed out, just let them sleep it off, as though they're blissfully resting until the next day arrives. When you pass out, you're not falling asleep, you've lost consciousness, which is a very different thing. And when I talk to students, I always talk to about, when you were a kid and you had a vomiting and diarrhea bug and you went to bed, nobody cared about what position you fell asleep in because you're just asleep. You're able to protect yourself. If you vomit in the middle of the night, you're going to roll over and spit it out and call for your mom and do all the stuff you normally do. But when you pass out, you haven't fallen asleep, you've lost consciousness. And that's why everybody says, oh, well, you're supposed to leave them on their side or on their belly, preferably on their side, so when they vomit, they don't choke themselves. Well, if you really think about what you're saying is that person is unconscious and unable to protect their airway. So if they're laying back and they throw up, it sits in their airway until they breathe again, and then they suck that stuff down into their lungs, and you aspirate and suffocate, and there's all sorts of other problems. So there's a lot of misconception that starts for me with the fact that it's not a drug. It's Diet Coke. Well, it's not Diet Coke. It's a drug, and it's a powerful drug. And I'm not saying that it's not something that people should ever drink, but you got to understand it for what it is. And so I think that's where a lot of the trouble with people starts, is they don't understand what it is, and then they don't understand how it works. So it's one of those things you just kind of have to understand. It is a drug, it's dangerous, it does powerful bad stuff to people all the time, but more so understanding how it works, drinking and driving, drinking and working, really with any machinery, always a risk, because machines don't think, they don't react, they do what they're supposed to do. So if your judgment is off and you're behind the wheel, we're all in trouble because the car's not going to do anything to help. You have to be the one making those decisions. So those are the things when I go and talk to the students in the schools, I try to stress to them is what they're dealing, what they should be watching out for, and an idea that it is actually a drug.
Okay. So simply defined, alcohol poisoning is drinking too much too fast.
Right. And the tricky part is everybody wants to know about numbers and, what's the percentage of alcohol, and the hard part is it varies from person to person. Somebody who drinks a lot of alcohol over years will develop some tolerance and ability to metabolize it differently than somebody that doesn't drink at all. So to say, if you drink so many of these, that's too much, but if you drink this, you're safe, that's not necessarily true because everybody's metabolism is a little bit different. And there's a lot of factors that go along with hydration, whether you ate, whether it's an empty stomach or a full stomach, as to how the alcohol is going to affect you. So it's really a progression, and to get away from numbers, because everybody, when I do this, teenagers often ask, well, what is too much? Well, too much is what is too much for you, and it's not a number telling you that this much, giving you a blood alcohol level of this much is too much for you. That doesn't help, because what's your blood alcohol level? You don't know. You just are drinking the alcohol at the party. There are things that make it worse and better. Mixing drinks with stimulants, because alcohol is a depressant, generally speaking. And what really becomes difficult is when people give you a little Red Bull and some vodka or something like that, because the Red Bull is a stimulant. So the normal stuff that would happen to people as they drink more is they become more drowsy and more lethargic and less, vigorous and enjoying things. When you drink the Red Bull with it, kind of counteracts that. So they're able to drink more, longer, and gets people into more trouble. And so we're finding new ways to make alcohol poisoning more common, just because of how we're mixing it with different things to make it taste better. Because it really, and if you think about it, it's fermented something, grapes or whatever it is. It's kind of rotten food, so it doesn't taste good initially. People acquire a tolerance or a taste for it over time. So a lot of the kids that drink are mixing it with different things just to make it taste better so that they can do it.
So we want to make sure then that young people understand, and adults for that matter, for one thing, that alcohol is in fact a drug. And also, if at any point someone passes out, they need to have the understanding that that person has lost consciousness, and
Yeah.
is it at that point then that they should be seeking some sort of help for this person?
Yeah, there are a couple things. Their ability to protect their airway is the biggest problem that we get into with kids. First of all, there's all sorts of dangers because even if they're not in the alcohol poisoning level of things, their judgment is impaired. So that person getting in the car and driving, or working with a lawnmower, having that ice cold refreshing beer before they go out and mow the grass, those sorts of things get people into trouble right off the bat. So you don't even have to have the alcohol poisoning level to put yourself in danger. But when you get to the poisoning level, we're talking about difficulty in being able to be coordinated in walking. That's the first thing you're going to see, is the people that are staggering around and are not able to control themselves very effectively and are at risk for falling and hitting their head. There was the, I think the IU student last year or 2 years that went from Zionsville that fell down the stairs at a party and hit her head. And she had been drinking, and everybody said, oh, well, we'll just let her rest. Well, she had a head bleed. And I believe that's how it all worked out. So there's the risk of that. When you're just talking about straight alcohol poisoning by itself, it's their ability to protect their airway. You'll see difficulty breathing. When they start vomiting, you're in bad shape. When people are vomiting, that's a sign that the body is physically reacting to the alcohol that's there. And their ability to protect their airway and not get that vomit into their lungs becomes a significant concern. And that's why people always say, well, if they passed out, make sure they're on their side. Because you want to make sure that they can keep their airway clear. Because if they're on their back, they can't. And again, passing out is not falling asleep. Passing out is losing consciousness. It's a very different set of problems.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you clarifying all of those points for us. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
When Margaret and I decided to sell the old estate here, we had only one choice in signage: Logan Street signs and banners. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore, but rather located on 10th Street on the south side of Noblesville. Well, we sold the old beauty, and we were able to buy this wonderful estate. And we had so much money left over, I was able to buy this beautiful 1968 Eldorado Cadillac for Margaret. Only 472,000 miles. Margaret loves it because it's got those big seats and that heavy-duty suspension to support her svelte frame. Next time you're looking for signs or banners, call old Jim at Logan Street Signs and Banners, 773-7200. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore.
Everyone knows it's easy to find first-run movies in the big theaters. But where can you go to watch your favorite classic movies on the big screen for the perfect night out? Why rent a flick when you can rent the entire theater? Call today to reserve our 32-seat theater for your next event, or just stop by to see what's showing this weekend. The 14 by 7 foot screen and the high quality digital surround sound system offers all the amenities you would expect from the big theaters, with a laid back atmosphere and comfortable seating of your own home. Wofford Theater at 1744 South 10th Street in Noblesville gives you the classic movies you want with a big theater experience.
Welcome back to the Be the Light Show. I'm Denise Rezsonya, your show host, and I would like to welcome Senator Jim Merritt to the show. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here with us today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming. So now we're going to kind of delve into this Lifeline law, which we have alluded to a little bit so far in the episode. Can you go ahead and give us some background on what the Lifeline law is?
Okay. Well, there were two versions. The first one really focused on underage drinking. And the second one was much more diverse and much more impactful, if you will. And the second one really dealt with, and does deal with today, the opportunity to save someone's life regardless of the situation that person is in under the age of 21. Meaning, if a person is in need of medical attention, if they fell downstairs, if they fell out of a tree, if they got in a fight, if they're under the influence of drugs, if they have had too much alcohol, someone is able to call 911 and have immunity for the people that make the call, the folks that are in need of medical attention, along with those that stay and cooperate. And it's really important that those that stay and cooperate, because we've seen many tragedies and crises happen because they know what has been going on at the social event. And maybe the person that has made the call does not know. And if you know, that knowledge will help an ER doc, if you will, help that individual survive.
Okay, so we really want to make the point that through this Lifeline law, make the call, stay, and understand that and cooperate, and make sure that you will receive immunity for doing so.
That's exactly right. And it's very important that we make those points because you need to keep your head, and you cannot panic, and you've got to think squarely and think calmly. And these are seconds that you can't get back. We want someone to make a good decision and not have their last decision be a bad one.
Absolutely. And so now you mentioned this does include other drugs other than specifically alcohol.
It's in need of medical attention. If someone is having an overdose from heroin, if someone has smoked too much marijuana, if someone has been at a pill party that we've seen in northern Indiana, where two brothers passed away because no one knew that they had been taking the pills at this party. They went home and didn't wake up the next morning.
Wow.
And so it's very important that people are at this social event, are cognizant of the fact of who is there, what is being consumed, and how they can help the individual that will end up helping them.
Okay. And so how's the law helped so far that you know of?
Well, anecdotally, our team, our Make Good Decisions team, in relationship with the Indiana Youth Services Association and the Finblooms, we're a team. We've talked to almost 50,000 people in 3 years.
Wow.
And I believe it's made impact. I think we've saved lives.
Yeah.
And countless lives. And anecdotally, the Finblooms in the city of Carmel have been told that 10, 15, 20 people have been saved through this. And I imagine it's immeasurably more when you talk about college campuses, of which I've been to all of them and continually go.
So the key here is awareness. We want to make sure that people understand this information, they have this information, they share this information. Make sure adults, you're talking to your teens about it. What other points would you like to make about the law?
Well, not as much as the law, but kids make mistakes. People make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And you just think of a college freshman, 17, 18-year-old, first week or two on campus, mom and dad aren't there, the world is their oyster.
Yeah.
Now, in regards to the law, kid walking home from a bar or from a date, under 21, has had too much to drink, he sees someone that has stolen a car. Do I call or I do not call? Am I going to get in trouble if I call? Make a good decision and call because you have the immunity. A person is a victim of sexual assault and they're under the influence of alcohol. Now, if I call and they know I'm drunk and I'm under 21, I'm going to have more problems. Make the call. Make the call. And it all depends on staying calm and making a good decision and possibly saving someone else's life or your own life.
Absolutely. So one of the points on the Make Good Decisions information that we were kind of talking about earlier is this no friend left behind. We want to make sure that young people stay together before they go out, talk about having a designated non-drinking friend, but make sure that you stay together and say those 4 words, that no friend will be left behind. Just make sure that you guys are staying together. We want to make sure that people understand not to try to give this person medical attention, but they immediately make the call, get the help, and that they understand to specifically to stay and wait.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad we're emphasizing that these days. I've got 3 kids. They're not kids anymore. They're 22, 22, and 26. But I can tell you, they use Uber and they stay together, and they think on their feet, and they proactively plan their evening of what their transportation is, who they're going to be with, and where they are going to be. And it's very important for lots of reasons, including having fun and understanding what the limits are and where you're going to be and who you're going to be with.
Yeah, absolutely. I can say that I don't think at college age I was thinking quite that clearly about those
Well,
decisions.
we
as made
aren't.
them.
The circumstances these days are a lot different. On college campuses, when I was there, it was keg beer and keg beer only. And that's no longer. And it's gone towards handles, it's gone towards spirits, it's gone towards heroin, and it's gone towards pot. It's a more dangerous world these days, for many reasons, including those. And it's a different world today, and it's a meaner world.
Yeah.
It's a scarier world.
It is, and I'm a parent myself. I mean, I've still got some time before my guys go off to college, but I know, even Brett's story, we've already sat around as a family and discussed it, and we're trying hard to go ahead and start emphasizing these points now, even at my kids' ages, which are 13 and 10. So hopefully some of this sticks, it makes a difference. I'm absolutely certain that you guys are saving lives through this. And
We had a drug awareness event last night, and we had a sixth grader talking to us about his knowledge of drugs.
wow.
He wasn't an addict, he just had a lot of questions, and he came with his mother and father. And so in this age of social media and communication, you have to understand that everyone knows.
Yeah.
Everyone knows, and you're bombarded with a media, bombarded with a message society. And I was flabbergasted by this young man of how mature he was and how knowledgeable he was about drugs and how to stay away from them and how to pick your friends. And he's lost his innocence, but you're kind of glad he has.
Yeah.
And so it was an eye-opener for me, and that young man is going to grow up and be an outstanding individual in our society. Maybe somebody that's 10 or 11 years old doesn't have that much information and needs it. I've always said that I would go to any school, including 6th, 7th, or 8th graders, because it's hitting them at a very young age. People are having to grow up pretty quick these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again so much for all of this wonderful information, for your time today. I want to again thank our show sponsors, Jim Wofford, Wofford Theater, and Hamilton County Television, and hope that you will join us again next week. Thank you so much.